Hi, everyone. Eric Smith here with Alliance Systems. I hope you're ready to go today because we're going to just jump right in. Today, we're going to learn about a family-owned textile rental company that's been around for nearly 120 years. But starting about 7 or 8 years ago, they really started to expand and grow. And to me, this is something that's really exciting for me to see a company in our industry transforming like this. But what I really want to know is, what are some of the strategies and processes being used to drive this growth? And how does a family-owned company that's going through these types of changes still maintain the same service level, attention to detail, and keep that locally owned and operated feel and pride? So this is something that I see in the industry, and it can be a real challenge to thread that needle. So to help us out today, I'm joined by Colin Wetlaufer, president of City Clean and Simple, based in Oelwein, Iowa. Welcome, Colin. Thanks for joining me today. How you doing? This is the podcast for the textile rental operator community to learn new things, share ideas, and drive conversations. Welcome to Laundry Talks with your host, Eric Smith. This episode is brought to you by Alliance Systems.
Doing good, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. What's new? What's new with you?
Oh, man. It's summer's in full swing. My children don't sleep. And, trying to do a bunch of laundry in between. So that's about it.
And they're home all day now. Is that right?
They're home all day and all night.
Well, cool. Yeah, we got summer is a busy time. Let me start out by asking, one, am I pronouncing Oelwein correctly?
You are. I think somebody told me it's like old German for old wine.
Oh.
And you just dropped the D. So I think you got it right.
Okay, it's close enough. Yeah. So,
as a kindergartner, having to learn to spell Oelwein and Wetlaufer, they didn't set me up for success, Eric. So
yeah. So and that name, it goes way back in Oelwein, your fourth generation of Wetlaufer to oversee the company. And tell me a little bit about how the company got its start.
Yeah. So my great grandfather founded the company in 1906. He came to Oelwein that year, and I believe was 18 at the time. He had, I don't know if he got it once he came or bought it on the way, but he had a horse and wagon. At the time, Oelwein was the hub for the Chicago Northwestern Railroad. So all the lines out of Chicago went to Oelwein, and there was a lot of people working, a lot of people living in tents, a lot of good things. The population of Oelwein, I think, was higher in 1906 than it is today.
Wow.
By a lot. And so he found somebody with a washing machine. He started selling the laundry, had somebody else doing the laundry, bought him out 6 months later, and the rest is history.
I saw on your company timeline that one of the key moments in the history of the company was when the horse retired and you went to your first delivery vehicle. So
yeah, for sure. This has got to be one of the only industries where you see pictures of horses, Model Ts, vans, trucks, all the way up to semis. So it's a fun part of the story. So we still have a restored Model T that we do in parades and things. So
wow. Is your grandfather in this picture that's behind you?
That's my great grandfather. Yeah. So that's her. That's the founder. So he had 7 kids, and his oldest was the next Gerald. And then my grandfather was the youngest. So there was greater than 20 years between them. So wow. He was actually already graduated from college when my grandfather was born. So I'm 4th generation, but technically there could be 5 in there. So it's been a little bit. And my grandfather left the business after the Navy, started his own laundry in Arizona, and then later was convinced to come rejoin when none of his nieces and nephews stayed in the business, who were his age.
Wow.
And they had all left. So they convinced him to come back to Iowa.
Well, I've got a lot of questions that I want to get to, and the people want to know. Last question, just kind of about the history of the company, is tell me, what was it like from your perspective, kind of growing up in a laundry family? And is this something you always wanted to do, or did you explore other options, or kind of how's your journey into the family business?
Yeah, well, you got a family business, and you've got a small town, and then a lot of people in it. And so, when I was little, my grandfather was in the business, obviously very active. He was the president when I was born, and my father was in the business. Laundry's everywhere. It was all that was talked about. All the dinners, Sunday dinners, and as soon as dessert's served, and reviewing things for the week and things to do. And the size of the company at the time, really you've got owners doing everything in the business. And so their hands are on everything, they're touching everything, and you see it all. So we had a fire in 1992, which was a total loss fire of the rental plant. We had a separate dry cleaning operation then, but we had set up temporary staging of clean products around delivery in a warehouse, and we're renting a laundry third shift that was about an hour away, and bussed all the employees, ran that laundry for disaster recovery. And so I was 8 years old when that happened, and it was June. So that's where my dad was. He was working, he was doing stuff, and I started coming in sorting hangers, and I'm sure my mother wanted me out of her hair and wanted me to stop doing stuff. And so started being around it then. Then you start doing yard work, mowing lawns, doing those things. When I was 12, the person that did our first sort, which back then was a person assigned to a job, she had her first child and was going to do maternity leave in the summer. And so somebody's idea was, well, teach Colin how to run first sort. And it was a very manual process, and I think I did it about 50% as fast as her.
Yeah.
But by the end of the summer, it was fairly good. And then you work in the plant, and then back when I turned 16, you could still drive her out, but you didn't need any special safety certifications. So I started jumping routes then, and try to touch all the different parts. So I think having that be so much of kind of a family identity, and multi generations of touching stuff and doing stuff, I think there really was never a thought of not being in the business. And I think one of the neat things about City, from my perspective, is everyone put a different stamp on it generationally. So the business changed based on the direction and the strategy they wanted to have of that leader. And I felt like there was opportunity there to do it. The big negative was that it was in very rural Iowa. So that was probably my only hesitancy. But I married my high school girlfriend, so that coming back home made that a little simpler.
Nice. So when you took over, and one of the changes we're going to talk about is the expansion, but can you tell us when you took over, what were some of the first challenges that you faced and you were looking to address?
Well, I think you've got business challenges, and you've just got family entering the business stuff. I think there's always that fear in a family business of too much nepotism. I mean, frankly, by definition, family business is creating some level of nepotism, but you're having a path where you can earn things, being a small enough business, knowing everybody generally that was involved in the business, that helps when you're integrating things. But I think there's a testing period for everybody that's coming in. And when you enter a business, I mean, I see a lot of people do it different ways. There's businesses that feel like, hey, you should go away, prove yourself in another industry, learn skills, learn what it's like to work somewhere else, that whole thing. For me, I think diving in, the best advice I got from my grandfather after I graduated college is he said, you've got 1 year that everyone will remember, and you should unlock the door and you should lock the door. You've got nothing else to do. So you might as well hang out. And that turned out to be really, really good advice, because I think when you're trying to figure out your way, even if there's things that don't directly involve in your operational day-to-day, you get involved in things because you're present. And there's something about this industry that, the blue collarness, the sweat of dirty laundry, that's in everything we do. And I think you kind of have to earn that respect of those people doing the work. So, coming into the business and just trying to figure out what that path looked like was a big deal for me. One of the best things that happened to me early on was I'm a very competitive-minded person that likes to find goals. And my father had set up like, hey, here's the roles you should really learn if someday you want to run this business, and here's what success would look like in that role. So there wasn't assigned timelines necessarily to that, but it was achievement markers. If you can go sell and you could maintain this rental sales average, then you'd be eligible to do something else, et cetera. And that gave me a path that I thought made sense. And like all family businesses, that path changed, jumps different roles based on business need. But I think that really helped. And the biggest challenge from a business standpoint at the time was, I think the business was really comfortable. And there's nothing wrong with businesses. I think like lifestyle company is a dirty word, right? So I don't know if I'd say lifestyle company as much, but there wasn't a high growth goal in the business. I think there was a very comfort level goal. There was no intent for geographic expansion, and we had a lot of capacity in the existing facility, and so I think there was just a level of comfort. And nobody was there on Friday afternoons. I mean, there was just a lot of things that were very different. And so getting to a point where you could be an impact on strategy as a next generational person coming in, and then, getting people to buy into that strategy. I think that transition takes a long time and is a real challenge.
Yeah.
It was for me.
That's great. And it's clear that you obviously kind of felt a little bit of that pressure stepping into your role, that, you kind of felt like maybe that people were watching you. You had an opportunity to show kind of, how you could kind of put your stamp on the business, but you also kind of took the time to work in all those different roles. And I see that as an important step a lot of successful people take. Before, a lot of people are going to want to know kind of how you got to point A to point B. Before we talk about a couple of those things you've done, do you mind just sharing kind of a
Sure.
Contrast what the company looked like, size, geographically, facilities 10 years ago versus what it is today, and then we'll maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, so so I started full time in 2007. In 2007, we serviced about a 70-mile radius of Oelwein, which I'll bet the total population in that 70 miles is probably 600,000 people, and had a dominant market share as percent based on how we do market sizing work. And obviously there were steps in the way, but today we have 3 processing plants, 4 depots, and we service a geographic area which encompasses all of Iowa, all of Minnesota, little bit just the Fargo, Sioux Falls, Omaha on the west edge, and then Quad Cities over to Eau Claire on the east end, up to Canada basically. So significant change in geography and facility size. And so the business overall is just under 6 times the top line value.
Wow, those are I would characterize as big changes. So
yeah, a lot of changes.
And what was if they're they always talk about how you eat an elephant, which is one bite at a time. So what was one of the very first steps you took kind of to move towards that direction?
I think the first thing was when we had a first depot, and for us, we're in the state of Iowa, and we're considered an Iowa company. We didn't go to Des Moines, which was just under 3 hours from Oelwein, which is the largest metro, and the greater MSA of Des Moines is almost half the population in the state. Obviously, a lot of business potential. At that time, we were 100% industrial in what we service. So, looking at that market size, what was really there, and there was no, real local independent that was committed to being there. I think the biggest part of geographic expansion that we learned, but later ended up really defining our strategy is, we like to compete against the publicly traded national company. And when we can go to a market and we're the local independent or the largest local independent, either way, we think that's a really different story that we can tell. And I think the market was really hungry for somebody that was there. There was one other laundry that was there that was kind of had to go there because their customers had pulled them, but they didn't want to be. And we were able to take a senior leader and move him to that Des Moines market and start that, and pretty aggressive growth plan and how we wanted to chunk out starting that depot. So that was a big thing, proving the concept that we could do it, and it also led us to a market that I think our market potential almost quadrupled with just that first move. So that was probably the first big step.
Cool. One of the other things I did some that I read on the website is that something that I think that you're really proud of, and that is a low employee turnover at City. And on your site, I see multiple instances of employees that use that term. Hey, it feels like a family atmosphere. And then I even saw customers that are interviewed that say really feels like a family. So I wonder how do you keep that kind of feel alive in a large growth phase?
Yeah, it's one of the larger challenges. I think, the people that you know for a long time, like Mark Ballo was the person that went to Des Moines, and I think he's in his 42nd year with Citi. He is family, right? So I think that in a family business environment, you have people that share a last name, but then you have people who share common sense of values and work ethic that are together every day. And at this point, from a day-to-day operations, I'm the only technical family member in the business, but I feel like we have a ton of family, and there's a lot of people that have done it. I mean, we still have people that have interacted with 3 generations of family that are working in the business, and we recently had people lost that were getting back to that 4th generation. So I think you want to try to instill that, how you talk about people, how you care about people. I kind of joke, Eric, I don't want to work with people who don't want to know and care about me personally. And I think that's important. And I think that starts that conversation, because we're whole people, not just the time that we spend at work. So that's a big part of things, but frankly, it's the largest challenge with growth. I think geographically expanding, keeping that sentiment, and then the acquisition aspect, it makes it even harder.
Well, I imagine
that comes into play.
And I imagine that one of the biggest challenges you probably personally deal with is just the demands on your time, where, when you're in a 70-mile area and managing a smaller organization, you have that, getting to know the people. You probably have to make a much more conscious effort to, keep those, communications open.
Oh, and it's one of my personal frustrations of, we went from probably within 6 months after starting, I knew not only every employee personally, but probably their significant other, probably, most of their kids, some of their dogs' names, I mean, there's an intimacy if everybody. And it's really challenging now. It's difficult to see everybody. It's sometimes takes time to meet new employees, and you have to be really intentional about it. And the geography is harder than the employee count, I think, because, proximity makes things easy. If you see somebody regularly, you kind of get to know them through osmosis. So when you have to put intention around it and process, that becomes a whole different thing. So, and relying on other people to drive some of that information is a big challenge.
Absolutely. One of the other things I've heard you say in the past is that you're very good as a company at asking yourself what your own weak points are. And that kind of brought me to, I know you have a program, a quality management program you call, I think, Citi Quality Management. And I'm assuming that you're kind of leaning on a lot of those processes to help you through this growth. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Systematizing things where it becomes a scalable and repeatable process, I think, is really, really essential. And there's a lot of tools that have helped us that are outside. It's not like it's a magic formula, but going from so in my lifetime, Carlos Guerrero was our plant manager for over 40 years, and he probably personally touched for 30 years garments every week on every route. And when you lose something like that, I mean, that's not a scalable process to ask somebody to do it. And so, how do you have that? How do you define it? And using some of the things of, like the hygienically clean process through TRSA, that standardizes some things from a quality control standpoint that you can lean on, and then build into that your own process for checks, and hopefully not stumble too much along the way.
Yeah, I mean, that perfect example of that. You talked a little bit earlier about one of your first jobs was doing the first sort on garments, and then you've got an employee that maybe used to touch almost every garment each week. And now, it's really technology that you're stepping in with. One of the things that, again, you guys promote on your site is the adoption of RFID and ultra high frequency RFID technology. You want to talk a little bit about the move towards that form of technology, how it's helping you, grow?
Yeah. We 2009, we went to, the high frequency, but not ultra high in mats. And then in 2011, we went to ultra high on garments. And, from a barcode technology to that, and getting more data with less labor, frankly, that was a big input. And it's interesting how the believability from a customer base of and assurances of, we went from counting in my career to not counting, and then really the RF technology allows us to count without having to have the labor to count. And it's not magical, but it's good data that's easily there. There's a believability to it. I mean, I think people understand and expect mistakes, and our customers are operators of their own businesses. So they relate to that. I think when you talk about human counts or even, light frames and things like that, there's a natural kind of tilting of the head. But when you talk about scanning a chip that's in a towel or a garment, there's an assurance there and a believability. And as we continue to expand on how we utilize that RF technology, I think it's really been neat. I mean, on the garments to be able to prove to people that they're getting back what they sent in and have that assurance, that's a really big deal. We're starting to implement it in the healthcare division of our business. And I think there's even more applications there when you talk about on-site inventories, levels, ensuring that those audits are being done and linen utilization within, clinics and acute care settings. There's really a ton of opportunity there. So it's giving real data in the hands of people in a really tough part of our business. And frankly, hiring for the soil department is a hard thing to do. So if you can reduce those needs and the amount of touches you have to have through technology, it's pretty incredible of how that changes the feel within the plant.
Yeah, it's a lot nicer if I'm working on the soil room. If I just push a soil linen back through a portal, I can tell you that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, versus a hand touch everything. Yeah, it's a very different demand for sure.
Wow, that's great. Anything else? You talked about how well, actually, I want to make a point on the inventory control side. I'm sure as you've grown, you're 6 times the size of the business, which means in some cases you've got 6 times the product acquisition cost, and things that you might have once done manually are going to be very, very difficult for you to do without technology today. So,
oh yeah, I think the realities of some of those physical inventories, how you handle things. What people I think tend to be really hesitant when you don't have any depot and you're an L1 plant operator, and you talk about the problems that can happen in a depot. I mean, every private laundry has sold against a big national servicing a part of their geography out of a depot who forgets things and it takes weeks to get back and all these things. Some of that's true and some of it's kind of stories that we tell. But being able to scan things on site, know what's coming before it's even put into the back of a semi trailer, know what's going back. We're trying to get more on site customer scanning and some of the portal technologies where, like you said, pushing whole carts through, whether it's clean or soil, it just is pretty darn cumbersome to not do that. I think the future of our industry will be, guaranteed full scan at the customer level of everything that we're picking up. We know what that is when we're there and before we leave, and then we're bringing back, and they know that those returns are equal. We're headed that way.
Absolutely. And back to you were talking a little bit about the depot. And you mentioned earlier that was really your first step. So when you decided to expand and open that depot, what did you do? Just go down there and find a facility and hire a salesperson, or how did that process begin?
Sure. So the very first one, the process we did, we had a leader identified, and his background was largely through sales management. So he himself was sales, and at the time, there was a lot of conservativeness still within the business that maybe has changed a little bit, but I didn't have the authority to just run with the budget at a loss for a long time. So it was pretty conservative, and so we sized the market. We brought all of our rental sales reps from anywhere there, and really to make those initial prospecting cold calls, fill the database, and then add a rep. And we started off with selling and doing a truck swap, and not having a physical location until we built up to, I think it was 3 days of volume, and then went with the physical location. and still did a truck swap for a little while until we had, I think, went to a 5-day route and then moved to an actual shuttle transfer, larger depot. And we were in that depot until we were at 2.5 routes. And then we moved up to a bigger depot because by then we were, needing a full semi-trailer for the transfer. And I think we hung there till about 5 routes. And then we ended up building a facility. The nature of it's almost like a trucking terminal, but with some specialized stuff with trolleys and things. So, to only need 10,000 square feet, but 12 loading docks is a unique ask in the market. So we just went and put our flag in the ground there. So that's how we did the first one, and we've modified that process a lot as we've expanded. We try to go somewhere and grow organically in a territory. I think we understand the speed and the necessary levels better now, at least with our system, to attain profitability, afford different levels of assurance. And I think all those growth steps are tough, right? To get to a point where you can really justify good service management, justify good relief drivers. What are those doing? And when they're far from the hub, I mean, in our case, all of our depots are, 3 of our 4 depots are more than 3 hours away from the plant that services. One is only an hour. That's a little simpler, but figuring out what those numbers mean for you and your organization and how fast you need to hit, it's kind of working backwards of how much you can sell, how fast you can sell it, and go from there.
And that opens up the door once you start kind of planting these people and employees 3-4 hours away now. How did you handle that from an HR perspective? Were you taking existing successful team members and kind of planting them in new areas, but how do you manage those people now in a different way?
Yeah, it's really changed our structure. And so we only did that once. So the very first depot we did, we took an existing, high culture individual that we felt like understood who City was and relocated them. I would love to do that every time. We haven't had other people in that situation. So, we typically start with sales in a market, and so the sales is a little simpler because they're less tied to the rest of your leadership structure. But once you're selling in a market and then building that service infrastructure, so over time, I think we've really defined what type of person works best with us. In our case, we like people that don't know the industry as well. It seems to align better with what we're doing. We've made every mistake you can possibly make, I think, in this process, both from a hiring and a management selection. But getting those people that can support the growth, and the only real change is I think we now overhire on service versus what the math would say we need because of the lack of support. Because you truly are on an island. And, you need to build bridges as best you can, but we have to have more oversight than we have. So we've grown too fast in markets, and that's almost a worse problem than not growing fast enough.
Right. So back to looking at growth, as operators are kind of looking at what their opportunities are for growth, a lot of times that happens in 2 different, types of formats. Some companies, one option is to just slowly expand geographically, in any direction where they feel the market warrants it. And they might, start by running an overnight route, and they might turn that into a depot. The second option is either through acquisition or building from the ground up. They may see the need that it's an opportunity to grow, through a new facility. So why don't we talk first about, how you first started with moving to a depot?
Sure. I think the real first question is, what do you want to do? And, it's easy to just say laundry, and that's, laundry talks to the podcast, right? But are you a healthcare provider? Are you a uniform provider? Are you mat only? Are you industrial mix? You F&B linen? And then understanding, of your existing customers, we reference a lot internally. We talk about our share of wallet of the products and services we offer. How much of that are we getting with our existing customers, and kind of doing a sizing of where you're at and say, okay, what's your potential? And, for us in the industrial side of things, the easiest information to get is employee size of potential customers. And so we quantify, gross employee count to a share of wallet and how it relates to the services and products we provide. And then we can look at a market and say, this is what we think the marketing potential or the weekly, revenue is in industrial laundry. And you can look at competitors in the market and Google Maps and all those things, but I feel like that's all secondary data. I think you have to start with who you are and what the potential is within your existing market. So, and then identify those markets that have the highest potential and the highest ROI. I think going from, as you grow as a company, I think, as the leader, the capital allocation is the toughest thing. I feel like you're presented with all these opportunities and potentials for growth, but where do you go and how do you spend? So, figuring out what the highest opportunity is really the biggest thing. We looked at, after we'd done the Des Moines, I was really clamoring to get to the next largest metro that was close, which for us was the Minneapolis region. And that was a little scarier for people with a different state, different areas, about half an hour further. And then, we were helped out with the tides a little bit when G&K sold, which was based in that market and had a really, really large presence. And we made a full commitment to go. And then it was even better tides when a few months later, Ameripride sold in that market. And so we got really aggressive with it, how to go within that market and sell. And that was the second big push for us of geographic expansion and to get up there. So I probably meandered around your question, Eric, but I think understanding that and how you want to go attack those customers and generate opportunities in the market is the real big decision with expansion. And I don't know if it's possible. Maybe somebody's done it where they just greenfielded a plant with no business. But to me, starting with the flag of the depot is the first big thing. And then deciding, are you acquisitive or not? Do you want to, are you open to the possibility of acquiring additional customers or businesses? And for us, in 2017, after I had become the full owner of City, re-entered a different planning process. By then I felt confident about my team in place, kind of being aligned strategically. And we really looked at our business and wanted to have a healthcare division that processed healthcare laundry, and really started that process seriously. And the first year was kind of assessing what we thought that looked like. And we really felt like we didn't want to be a mixed plant. You certainly can do it and be successful having healthcare mixed with other types of business, but we really wanted to have standalone healthcare facilities. And so we identified, potential targets and started working on it. And it took a while, but in September of 22, we closed on a 2-plant acquisition in the healthcare business and started with the plant side of things. So it was a different division, different market, and then also 2 plants at once. So that was a big bite to take off there.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think what I'm hearing is that as a company today, City is much more data driven, and you talked about the concern over the capital expenditures. When money is nearly free to borrow, that decision is completely different than as where we are today. That knowing and kind of having that data justify it makes it a little bit easier for you to probably make some of those strategic decisions.
Absolutely, and a little bit ago, you talked about scaling and challenges with scale. And I think that's really one of them is when you're the president, CEO of an organization and the bets aren't as big, frankly, you can probably absorb some things or justify some things. But when numbers start to change and bets get bigger, and like you said, when money isn't free, those things have large impacts on the ROI on different projects and getting disciplined about how you track them and not just passionate about it. I mean, I think every single plant operator's probably bought something at the clean show before that they just saw and wasn't part of their plan. And I think transitioning from, hey, this was on sale to being really strategic about what do we need? What's the plans for the future? What does that look like? That's a big transformation within a business. At least it was with us.
So big challenge just went out for Clean 2025 to get Colin Wetlaufer to buy something on the site.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the data, that kind of opens up another question I have as far as some of the things that are driving your growth, some of the decisions you've made. One of those has been on the marketing side. And, one of the things that I gathered from your marketing team in the past is that they really started kind of digging into that customer data. Who are the customers that we want to serve? You talk about healthcare and you talk about, the food service industry. And that was an area where you felt there was a lot of opportunity, and you really started using technology to identify those customers rather than just naturally growing and cold calling. You started to really target customers much more systematically. How's that process been for you?
Yeah, I probably like a lot of companies, when I sold full time, it was, here's a map of your geography and you're driving up and down streets and, entering stuff in and start with a notebook and then migrating to CRM and going to those things versus really being intentional about prospecting. And I think for rental sales reps in this industry, one of the hardest things is just identifying what a good opportunity is. And everybody probably attended a session at one time or another with a publicly traded CEO said, "Oh, everyone's a potential customer in this business." That's kind of true, but it's not true for Citi. And the people that are potential customers of Citi, I think we have very defined, we know what those NACES codes are. We know what the opportunity is within them. We sell to them differently. They have different needs. And from a marketing lens, I guess I kind of started from it on the sales end of, people don't care about, what you do. They care about what you do for them and how it impacts them. And so starting from the customer viewpoint and working backwards was really a big deal. And I don't know that there was anything, new about that, but it was new to us of really saying, okay, if you're a food processor, what are your needs and what are the differentiators that are really there? And that's a lot different than if you service diesel trucks, and identifying whatever those segments are and going from there. And then, then you have a list that you can not only work on in the sales process, but in your own business of how you can improve those differentiators. And so for us, when we think about marketing, everybody thinks about customer acquisition, and that's marketing. I think that's an aspect of marketing. I think of customer acquisition as pretty far down the sales funnel. Branding is top of sales funnel. I also think branding is number one in recruiting new business. And I think it's important for, just to identify who you are. It helps your people know who they are. It helps people be proud of where they work and what they do, and customers be proud of how you integrate with their business. And I think our business is it's not a transactional industry. It's, we're married, people put on pants. It's it's a small percentage of somebody's spend, but the CEO of company finds out if there's a hole in the crotch of your pants, right? So it's kind of a silly thing to think about, but it's so intimate what we do. And, it can get oversimplified and we can get lumped in with the trash guy, but this is a different thing. There's such a service component. And so I think trying to tell those stories through marketing to your current customers, to prospective employees, to current employees, that's really where the marketing component comes in. And to me, marketing is very strategic and sales is really just tactical, right? Our sales department's still Marines and they go out and they've got orders, and marketing's like the Pentagon, and they've got to figure out where we're going and what beaches we're storming. So.
But I'm hearing in both situations, though, one of the keys to your growth, whether it's in opening a depot or a new plant or changing your marketing strategy, it's first knowing who you are, what you're good at, and what you want to be, and using data to back up a lot of those decisions. So,
I don't think you can say yes to things until you understand what it is that you want, because at a certain point, saying no to something is saying yes to who you want to be. And that has been a very transformative thing for Citi. And it's something I struggle with mightily, of saying no to opportunity. But I think it's really important, because at some point you just get spread too thin, and you do it to your people, and they work hard enough in this industry. There's enough things that can happen, without making it crazy. And, you just can't be everything to everybody. So.
One of the things I love about some of your videos is it's really not videos about Citi, clean and simple. It's videos about your customer. And I really love that, because you're really almost creating an advertisement for your potential client or your client. And that's what people, that's what people want to see. One of the social media feeds I follow is Red Bull. They have a very very good Instagram feed, and nowhere on that feed do they ever talk about their products. It's always about someone jumping out of an airplane, and that's just kind of what I'm seeing. A little bit of the same spirit in the city marketing.
Oh, it's such a good call out, right, Eric? And everyone knows when you see the guy jump off a building with a Red Bull logo on his back that Red Bull is about taking life to the extreme and what it does to you, right? And our hope is that whatever your work may be, the way we support that and support you to execute on your plan, that's what we are. And I think there's a subtle undertone that we're trying to convey. That's obviously the intent. The other thing I'd say, Eric, is that getting people excited to do videos about laundry all day is a hell of a lot harder than some of our customers that do really cool things. And I still think one of the most fun things about what I get to do, and like when I talk to my 6-year-old about my week, if I go get to tour a business of a customer or prospect and learn about what they do, it's just so cool. And I think, if you're a genuinely curious person, this industry is just fantastic to get to see how other people do things and take those learnings back to you. And frankly, marketing lets us do that in a deep way, and hopefully deepen those partnerships to our customers. So we can add a little value for that.
Absolutely. And that's phase one in my overall attempt to get Red Bull as a sponsor of Laundry Talks. Yeah. We haven't made it there yet. But
I'm drinking a Ghost. So I don't know if you want to take this another direction.
Exactly. But think about things that are really fun. I think that brings other thing you're doing on video. It's not kind of looking more at other partners, your customers, but also your suppliers, is that I was fortunate enough to come on site, and our team got to participate in your other video project, The Wash, which is a knockoff of a Hot Wings eating contact show on YouTube, and just great, just a great opportunity. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I hope your digestive tract has recovered, Eric. It's I think our industry, it's funny to me, because I'll back up for a second. I think we have one of the neatest industries that exists. There's genuine connection. There's sharing with people in different markets in a different way. The networking's fantastic that I don't think exists in a lot of industries. And yet we don't have like a consistent form of content. That's how we go. I think, like what you're doing with Laundry Talks is so great. And some of these more industry specific things. So, we're trying to search for things that continue to be good for the industry, and selfishly things that I would want to watch and things that I would be part of. And, I've been in this industry forever, and, we talked a little bit about that, but what got me in love with it and hooked in this industry is the amount of help and support and camaraderie I've received from industry, from people all over that have similar problems. And, it's really, really special. And hopefully, there's a lot of opportunity through marketing and social media to expand on that.
Yeah. And since you brought that up, I want to talk a little bit. Is there anyone outside of your family, anyone that you feel like that has been a huge, mentor to you in that kind of line of thinking, as far as being able to lean on someone and get some good advice from kind of a third party?
Yeah. Frankly, there's a bunch. And, there's been different people at different stages in my life. And, I think, when you're 23 years old and you're trying to figure out, your place in the world and your place within your business, I think talking to people that have been there and done that is incredibly helpful. When you're going from one plant to 2 plants, that's a really big part of that journey of understanding, talking to people who've been there before. And, so there's a bunch of people that would be, it'd be hard to name them all, but specifically the one that frankly, I call all the time and bug him. So Michael Potak, who's the chairman of the board at Unitex, since I met him, he's challenged me in a different way, to think about things differently. Frankly, I probably wouldn't have, wanted to expand into healthcare, without some of that support and direction. And, it's good to have mentors and friends and peers that are supportive, but it's better to have them that challenge you in a way that somebody can only in a deep way. So I'm fortunate that I've got a bunch of them, but he's somebody I would call out because I bug him probably a lot more than he'd like, but he keeps answering me, so I'll keep doing it.
That's awesome. So now if I'm someone who was in your spot 10 years ago or more, and I'm thinking about, taking this step, what advice would you give to that next generation of textile rental operators that want to expand their business? What would you tell them?
Well, I think the first thing is go talk to a lot of people and go get involved with things. Go see other plants, other laundries. I think that I've never toured a laundry where I didn't learn something, even if it was something I didn't want to do. And those are important parts of going. And I think you can get really bogged down in the day to day and running things that you don't ever stop to talk to people and to learn from them. And so, hopefully your problems evolve and you're continuing to find different people and even support people. So there's a lot of cool industry cost groups, but there's a lot of industry events. CSC has a lot of events specifically. There's Alliant Con that happens. TRSA's got some cool events, and there's a ton of opportunity to network and see people. And almost always people in this industry will answer the phone and say, come on in, let's talk. And unless somebody's a direct competitor, and even then, oftentimes people will, review things, share things. And I still, it's one of my favorite things is go to tour other plants, talk to people, and share over a meal. So I think when you are getting into this industry, I think you've got to find that, not be afraid to it, whether you're extroverted or introverted or any of the above. And gosh, Eric, when did you start in this industry?
I started part-time at Alliance Systems in the fall of 1992. Yeah.
Right.
And, did not envision I would be there for much longer than 6 months, but, next thing you know, you're in, and,
the lint gets in your blood, even in software.
True. That's true. It is.
But if you think about all the people that you've known, and I don't know if you would have different advice. I'd be curious, but I think just continuing to expand your network and your reach and have those people who answer the phone when you call. I think that's how it starts.
Yeah. The most exciting thing for me on the sales side is that, there's a lot of sales opportunities, and a lot of them they don't come through. Right. And, the beauty of working in an industry for a long, long time is sometimes you get a second chance, and even a third chance to opportunities come around, and being in this industry is very special. And I agree with everything you said about it. So,
for us, one of my in the business mentors, this guy, Rick Bohr, was a district manager. He said his best customers he had to lose for 3 years to become his best customers. And sometimes people need to see it the other way and see what's on the other side. It's on the vendor side, I'm sure it's true of you got to be careful because these businesses stay around for a long time.
So, yeah, absolutely.
So, there's probably opportunities that come back around as a way.
I have a couple final fun questions, but before I do that, do you, anyone that you would personally like to see, going to use this as leverage to get someone on the show? So anyone that you'd like to see as a guest on an upcoming episode of Laundry Talks?
Boy, anybody doing, cool new things, I think is always good. I think, maybe the next step in this series, people that are building plants would be really good. I think Greg Shames would be really interesting to talk to about that. I think Peter Brown would be, PJ Dempsey, Brian Lecter went through that process. He's not a customer of yours, I don't think, but, I guess Greg Shames isn't either, but anyway, that doesn't matter. But, I think anybody that's doing, some of those things would be maybe a cool next step. Cool.
Okay. That's great advice. Thank you. And so last section here is just to kind of get to know something about Colin that no one knows. We're going to talk about music. I was there last summer. We had some great music discussions. We'll talk about that in a second. But start out, what's the last concert you attended in person?
The last concert I attended in person was a Primus concert 2 years ago. So I'm a child of the late 90s who was into metal. So it was a very nostalgic, silly concert.
Now, is this one of your favorite in that genre? Who is your favorite artist then?
Oh, I don't know. It's probably hard to say. Back when I used to like things that made your ears bleed and headbang a lot. There were a lot. So I went through all those metal stages, and I'm from Iowa, and Slipknot came out with their first album when I was in 8th grade from Iowa. So that was a big thing growing up. But the concert I went to before that was the Avett Brothers with my wife. So my music tastes kind of run the gamut. And I played the cello in orchestra all through 5th grade through high school. So I'm an eclectic, weird music lover, Eric.
Well, then let's learn just a few final questions. So Elvis or the Beatles?
Elvis.
Okay. Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin?
Led Zeppelin.
AC/DC or Nirvana?
Nirvana.
And Jimmy Buffett or Dave Matthews?
Dave Matthews.
Okay. And then almost to the end, Van Halen with or without, with David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar?
David Lee Roth.
Okay. And Taylor Swift or Adele?
I'll go with Adele.
Oh, no, that would be terrible in my household. I know.
just fighting words for you. So
this is our second conversation about Taylor Swift, so not our first. So that's interesting. We talked about the Eras tour last year over lunch. I think you were surprised by my level of interest in Taylor Swift.
Well, I think it was the ability to recite all the verses from multiple albums that was impressive. So I don't know, surprised or just blown away, impressed. I mean, super fan.
I don't know if I'm a super fan, but I'm not necessarily reciting Taylor Swift. They're reciting my daughter's reciting Taylor Swift.
I get it. Yeah. So somehow I missed the Taylor Swift thing. My daughter was pretty nuts about Katy Perry, man. So I sang Roar with her at the top of my lungs. So there you go.
That's the same thing. Well, good. On that note, the great thing is there's something in music for everyone. So
absolutely.
Colin, thank you so much. Great guest. Loved hearing your knowledge and input.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Hey guys, thanks for joining us for today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. We've got a great resource that you can fill out. If you're interested in learning how to streamline your routes, we've put together a ROI calculator that just takes a few pieces of information about your operation and will run the numbers and tell you how much money and time you can save every day. Click the link below if you want to go to that webpage. If you're listening, you can go to the alliancesystems.com website, click on resources, then click on Laundry Talks podcast, and you'll find a blog recap of every podcast and a link to that calculator. Thanks.